So many of us at one point in our life had a situation where we had a lot of debt, right? And if you're someone that's never been in that situation, then congratulations to you. It's a situation you never want to find yourself into, find yourself in, because it's very stressful, right? And for those that have been in debt, it's the hope is that you get in debt, and then you eventually get out of the debt, and you learn from that, and you make sure it never happens again. Also, if you are in debt, the hope is that you don't dig the hole so deep where it takes a long time to get out of, right? Because it can take, for a lot of people, they have $100,000 of debt, and it's going to take them forever to get out of it. Some people may not pay it altogether. So in this video, I have a woman here who has hundreds of $1,000s in debt. Okay, and I'm just gonna play the video so she can talk about how she got in that debt and what type of debt it is, and then I'll share my thoughts afterwards.
Okay, it's time I tell you about my debt. This is terrifying, honestly. I carry a lot of shame with this debt, which I think most people do, especially around school loans, because people have a lot of opinions about that, and I will explain the reasoning or lack thereof around everything that's going on with our debt. But drum roll, the big number is $627,528.29. Terrible. So the majority of that are school loans. My own school loans come to $266,427.79. I went to school for 6.5 years, 2.5 were grad school to get my doctorate in physical therapy. And then my husband has $581,378.69 in school loans. He did 8 years of school, 4 undergrad, 4 graduate, 4 chiropractic.
So, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. That looks a little bit more than $620,000 she was talking about. It looks like a little over 800,000. No, I'm not the best at math, but it seems like it's over 800,000. So I'm not really sure where her numbers are coming from. So I'm a little confused with that. Maybe that was the total, and now the 620 is just the balance. So yeah, I'm a little confused with that. But let's let her continue, because she has also some other debts that she's going to talk about.
So all that being said, the huge school loan ones are just so massive and they've always been there, that it's just, it's a huge burden, but it's also like we can't even include that in our debt payoff at this time, eventually. So if I deduct the massive government school loans and I keep just my small private one, by small private loan, it's $44,000, $189.42. So small compared to, massive. So if we total my private loan, my car payment, credit cards, braces, medical debt, the total for that, which is the ultimate goal to really start paying down now, is $91,681.89. The stress that we live under is just a daily stress. Honestly, I don't even know how to explain how it happened. Truly, we lived out of our means.
And that's the thing about debt, right? It's so easy to get into debt, right? And it's so hard. It's so difficult to get out of it. And that's the thing about this. Is a scary thing about debt, right? It's when you take on debt, it's easy to justify why you took it, right? It's just like, all right, let's say it's $100,000 debt. You say, all right, to yourself, like, all right, even though it's $100,000 debt, you justify it by saying, all right, maybe I'll pay like $100 a month, maybe $200 a month. And because you can break it down in those small terms, you think you can handle it. But the problem is you're then also getting other debts where it's maybe $100 a month, and then another debt, $100 a month. And it gets to a point where, like, when you start accumulating all this debt, it's just like, all right, how the heck did we get here? Like, we owe hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And it gets to a point where you're like, this is very stressful, and it snowballs, and it gets to a point where then you start living above your means, and you start living paycheck to paycheck. And that's the thing, you got to be careful when it comes to debt, because it can sneak up on you if you don't pay attention. And for me, even from my experiences with debt, like after I've gotten better with managing debt, I got to the point where I told myself, look, if that debt, I never finance anything that doesn't make me money, right? Outside of a home, I'll never finance anything that doesn't make me money, right? And once I've always kept that mentality, it's kept me out of trouble when it comes to how to deal with when it comes to dealing with managing money. right? And also, when it comes to credit card, paying the balance off every month. If you're someone that has a credit card and you're not paying that balance off every month, get rid of the credit card, because you can't deal with money, right? You should not be paying interest on credit card debt. It's the worst form of debt. Okay, you're talking about 20% APR. That just doesn't make any sense. Okay, so like when it comes to that credit card, like if you're going to use it, if you cannot pay off the balance every month, then you have no business with a credit card. And if you keep those two things, if you keep those two principles, you should be fine when it comes to how you manage money. But a lot of people, it's just debt is just like, you know what, I want to get the things that I need or want, and you know, if it's only $100 a month, I can handle that until it gets to a point where you can't. And that's how, you know, you get into a situation where you owe $100,000 a day. Of course, the school loans doesn't help. So let's let it finish.
You know, we were starting off in debt. I chose private school. My husband chose private college. I was 18. I thought it was a great idea. Looking back, I'm 37. It wasn't a good idea. I can't change that. I will be paying them off. But the rest of my debt was our decision, and it was not a good decision. Living out of your means, taking on things that you can't take on, but other things are just, they come up, you know, summer camp and childcare and unexpected house things and yada yada yada. We didn't include our mortgage in this either. That doesn't count. So the $91,681.89 is the total that I'm running off of for my purpose here on TikTok, to try to make money and pay it down, starting with the credit cards, because that is not good debt. And I really, 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 really hope to cut a huge chunk of that down.
So the one thing I'll give her credit for, she did at one point in that at the end, she was talking about, we're going to pay it off. So she feels confident that she's going to do it. And that's step one, right? Having the confidence in the, you know, wherewithal to say, we're going to pay it off, right? Because there's a lot of people that look at that total amount and be like, yo, we're never paying it off. That $600,000 and $700,000 is just debt. That's going to take forever to pay off. Okay. And some people look at that and they just say, you know what? Yeah, it's not going to happen. So I'm just going to die with this debt. At least with her, she said she feels like, yeah, we're going to pay this off, and she has the confidence and the attitude to do it. Then, hey, you get on that Dave Ramsey plan or something like that, you're going to have to really cut back on a lot of things in order to tackle that debt. And maybe, you know, start some side hustles, start a little business, do something where you can increase the income, because that is an insane amount of money. And the fact that you paying that, like, I remember going, like, lucky for me, I didn't graduate with a lot of debt, right? I think after I graduated school, it was like $12,000 of debt. And that's because I stayed there 5th year. And I remember talking about going to, you know, thinking about going to get my master's. I was like, it was going to cost X amount of dollars. I was like, you know what? I don't like school that much. So, you know, I'm not going to do it. But great decision. Like going back to get my master's when I don't really care about school like that, it was a great decision for me, because like I'm not even doing anything else with my degree. So, and that's what you got to understand, is just that, like, going to school and racking up all this student debt just doesn't make sense. At least for her, you know, she does physical therapy, or, you know, chiropractor or something like that. I mean, you're making decent money, you know. So I mean, if you can really tackle it, you know, I mean, they're making crazy money, but depending on where she lives. But you know, it's just taking on that much debt. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. These are stuff that people really got to start really looking at and saying, all right, this is how much we're going to owe, and say, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. But, you know, for a lot of people, it's just not, even though managing money is just simple math, you know, there's this psychological component that people, you know, haven't really developed, and it gets people in trouble. So, hey, kudos to her for saying, having the confidence to say she's going to pay it off, but good luck, because that is a lot of debt. So, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe, right? So guys, take care. Have a good one. Later.